From the advertising media capital of the world, New Milford, Connecticut, wherever that is. This is Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson, a bi-weekly-ish podcast about all things automotive marketing. Now, here's your host, Matt Wilson.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson, presented by Silverback Advertising, live online at silverbackadvertising.com. How's it going? You know how, like if you're working at a dealership, at least for me, I used to be the marketing director at the group, which I've mentioned a million times. And so we'd be getting a new general manager at a store, one of the stores in the group that I handled the marketing for. And I would be at the store and all the employees were like, oh gosh, we're getting a new guy. And everyone's human nature is to think, how is this going to affect me, right? How's this going to affect my job? How's it going to affect from anything? People worry about everything, vacation time, pay plan, hours. How's it going to affect me? And people are afraid of the new guy, of the change. And what that presents is a challenge for the person coming in, for the new guy. And I think it's kind of an uphill battle. And so I've been in the opposite position as well, where I've gone into a situation at a radio station where a staff is like, oh, here comes a new guy, and the staff was reporting to me. And I was very cognizant of how they feel. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about change and how people feel like sometimes they're out of their comfort zone, but we're going to look at it from the leader standpoint, the person who's coming in and generally responsible for the changes. And our guest today is the president of ESI Leadership Academy and expert panel member at Dealer Marketing Magazine. Her name is Fleming Ford. Hi, Fleming. Welcome.
Hey, Matt. Been very excited to get on the program with you.
Yes, for those who do not know, it has taken us a couple of times to record. Fleming is way more important than I am, but we had to reschedule for travel reasons for her, and then I had stuff I had to reschedule, and so we've been trying to do this for like a month, I think, maybe since the end of July.
I feel like it might be meant to be as you're wearing your Patriots shirt because,
yes.
I live in Tampa Bay, so if you had told me, I would have worn the Tampa Bay shirt.
I love it.
We have a big game this weekend. Yeah.
Should I go get my Brady jersey?
Yes, please.
I'll get it right out of the closet. Awesome. Normally, when I wear my Patriots gear anywhere, it's more, you got to deal with more people, oh, you're the fan of the Patriots, those cheaters. And it's like, oh, I've heard it all.
Yes.
I've heard it all.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what?
Nobody likes the winner.
Exactly. I used to, a long time ago, I hosted a radio show, a sports talk show, and we talked about NASCAR a lot, and everybody hated Jimmy Johnson, who won at the time. He had won 5 championships in NASCAR. We called him 5-time. And my
mom had Jimmy Johnson, so we all hated her. Yeah. Every family member had to have a different driver.
My thing was, everybody hates the best. Right?
Always.
Everybody hates the best. People love to hate the Yankees. They love to hate Jimmy Johnson. They love to hate Tom Brady and the Patriots. It's just the way it is. Unless you're a fan of those people, and then you're like, suck it, everybody. I'm a Patriots fan. Although not this year.
No, yes.
Or last year, for that matter.
You know what? The best leaders, nobody hates them. So that's what we're going to talk about today, right?
Way to bring it back. Impressive skills. Good segue. Yes. So people naturally fear change, right? It's human nature.
Yeah, because it's very uncomfortable. And so, we tend to avoid it. We tend to run from it. We tend to pretend like it's not happening. A lot of things to kind of make ourselves feel more comfortable and get back to the way it was.
So a leader comes in, and I think a dealership is filled with skeptics, right? So it's very easy, the longer you're in automotive, and I think probably especially on the sales side, the more skeptical and jaded you may feel because it's a crazy industry, which we love, but just it's crazy. And the stuff that happened on the dealer level when I was in my dealer group for 7 years, some of it you would not even believe. And
maybe
you would.
We do employee surveys, so I get to see a lot of what happens secretly under the scenes. Yeah.
I got lots of off-air stories I'd love to share with you that are not for public consumption.
Exactly.
But I tell you that, so I feel like a leader, possibly in automotive, it's more of a fight, more of a struggle because of the, that uphill battle. What are some things that, leaders need to keep in mind when they're coming into a situation that they're going to implement their own policies, their own procedures, or they're there to turn a business around? Like, they've got to be cognizant of how the people that they're coming to lead feel, right?
Right. Well, I think you kind of touched on right from the beginning. What is the culture already?
Yeah.
We've done some studies. I've worked on cultures for many reasons because we want to attract better people. We want more performance. We want everybody to not have, negative attitudes or complain and whine. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to work on culture. But what we have found is if the culture is not strong, if there's not open communication, if there's not opportunity for feedback, if people don't feel comfortable failing without, getting fired or, then people don't embrace change and they start to build up those barriers, as you said. So, I really started moving into this as people were like, do we go into digital retail? Do we start to modernize how we do things? Or do we just kind of keep making money and doing it the way we've always done?
Yeah.
And we looked at who navigated that move. And it really did come down to how the leader's ability to navigate change and how strong the culture was in order to make, any progress or facilitate progress in terms of the change initiative.
And two, like you've got to get buy-in from, as an example, if it's a general manager, let's say, or an operations manager, you've got to have the sales managers, the guys on the next level buy in order for the other folks, the troops to buy in and fall in line. It can't be, I used to have a boss who said, sometimes you got to block for the quarterback. Right. And he's like, even if you're, the person above you, maybe you don't 100% agree with what they're doing, you need to defend what the plan is because the people that work for you need to be on board. And you can't be like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, because then it all trickles down and it's a total disaster.
No. And I think you're hitting on so many things. I want to kind of unpack it a little bit. It's that first off, the, what I call the drop and dive kind of like GM who walks in is like, hey, here's another new thing I got at the last conference, make it happen. That builds up he'll get over this or she'll get over this in a few weeks, she'll forget about it. So if you're constantly putting new things in your culture and not thinking them through, you're not going to see that initiative progress. And then the other thing is, you're absolutely right, that desk or the people who are in charge of implementing it, if you haven't got their buy-in, then they're going to sabotage. It's because by nature, just psychologically, we all want to go back to the safe space. So you've really got to tap into the why. And, and my favorite radio station, IIFM, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
You've got to tie it back to why the change helps that desk manager, why that change, that new technology, that new pricing model, that new transparent, whatever you're embracing as the change. You've got to get, you're right, your blockers and tacklers, on board, and you've got to connect it to why it's beneficial and will help them. I don't want a new computer system. It's a pain in the ass to kind of figure out, but I know in the end, it's going to help me be more efficient and more productive. So you're very good point. Number one, you've got to get buy-in from the people who are going to be, using it and implementing it.
In your article in Dealer Marketing Magazine, I think you referenced right at the top, like a DMS or a CRM system. And that's a big one where, like I had a buddy whose store just got bought. And his first thing was, he was like, oh, we're changing CRMs. And like, I like our CRM and I don't want to learn a new CRM. And I'm like, buddy, what if the new CRM is an improvement? Like I know what you're using, but the new one, it could fine tune your process. It could help with your follow-ups. It could, have a positive impact. Like you gotta give it a chance. But the guy coming in to implement that needs to do a job of explaining it to him and the reasoning. Why are we doing this? Here's why, and here's how we're going to do it. Right?
No, and I think you just had your leadership hat on there, Matt. But that was a missed opportunity. And we see it over and over again because the dealerships, let's face it, they're crazy busy, but you're causing more strife and more issue for yourself down the road, or even next week, if you don't take the time on the front end to really do what you just did. Explain the why, explain the opportunity, explain how it's going to make everybody's lives easier. It's going to give them something back. And you know, that is a huge missed opportunity that we see over and over again in dealerships, is just do it because I said do it.
Yeah.
And people don't deal with that anymore. You know, people need to understand why they're going to have this disruption and why it's worth it for them to work harder in order to get to the bigger vision.
I don't want to get too far off track, but I think part of that comes from the way someone becomes the leader or the supervisor. You know, so I used to work in radio, right? And so what happened in radio was the general manager of a radio station was always the top selling salesperson.
Producer, yes.
But those skills aren't the same.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
I think that in a lot of situations, that is part of the problem. The person who is implementing the change or doesn't have the necessary training or skills to be the leader.
Right. Well, not totally. I'm with you. I mean, I think my first sales management job, you know, I had one skill, which I was a hammer and you were a nail. And I just thought I could just push everybody enough to get what I wanted done, you know, and it was that whole, what is it? The Zig Ziglar quote, you know, if you help people get what they want, they're going to help you get what you want. And so as a leader, to know that what it took to be a great producer, you have to move from knowing and doing the job to leading those that are doing the job. And so learning leadership skills that influence people and change behavior, inspire performance, get their buy-in, communication, connecting, all of those things are skill sets that we have to add to kind of our toolbox. We don't just have them naturally.
I was helping a former coworker who is moving. We used to work in radio together, and she's moving to an agency, and she's going to be supervising people. And it's her first supervisory job. And she used to work for me when I worked at iHeart. And so as part of the exercise in helping her, I went and I found this old drive, right? This old, like, you know, remember these like solid state hard drives?
What are those?
And I plugged it in, and I had to like jiggle the wire to make it work still. And and she said, you were a really good person to work for, you know, help me understand. And so I went back and I found a memo. I found a series of memos from 1998 when I worked in radio, and I was the marketing promotions director, and I had like a full-time assistant, a part-time assistant, and we had like 20 interns. And I said, look at these memos that I wrote in 1998. This is a different person than you worked for in, you know, 2011. That guy was a jerk and thought he could lead people by just saying, do it. This is the way it needs to be done. This is what's right. Do it. And, you know, it's just the mentality of picking up those skill sets through your career. But a lot of that, I think, in automotive, to bring it back to automotive, comes from working for people who you either learn how to manage or you learn what not to do. Helps as well in developing those leadership skills. I love working for a good leader. Isn't it great to work for a good leader?
Oh, it's like life-changing. And I always tell, you know, there's some people in automotive that are what I call job jail, which means they're doing very well. They're making a lot of money, but they're just miserable because their leader doesn't care or doesn't inspire them or doesn't work with them or grow them or challenge them. And you know, kind of getting back to what you said, sometimes it's not what you do, it's what you don't do that impacts this, which is you don't deal with difficult or crucial conversations. So you allow bad behavior to be part of your team, which impacts the rest of the team. And I see a lot of that. I don't know that we've equipped leaders and managers, you know, and I didn't know how to do this when I first got in, you know, it was like, that's bothering me. That's bothering me. That's bothering me. And maybe it'll go away. And I, you know, it goes into hope land. I hope somebody else takes care of that. I hope they leave. I hope they'll stop doing that. And, you know, hope isn't a strategy. So how do we empower leaders to get really comfortable with having difficult conversations so they can build the teams they really want? You know, and we actually have like a 9-step process to help kind of map out that conversation to make it a little bit more comfortable, and really kind of make sure the other person is hearing you in a positive way so that we can kind of win-win out of that difficult time.
It can get uncomfortable for somebody who's maybe a new leader because not that it's confrontation, but like having to let somebody go. Like that's not nobody wants to do it. You know, I had fun doing it. No, I'm just kidding. I did not. But
I see that in you, Matt. Yeah.
yeah. I'm totally mean. But it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, you know, makes the leader feel uneasy, but it's the kind of thing you need to learn to do, and the right way to do it, and the way to, and I don't want to say the nice way to do it, but the humane way to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if you've done your job right and you've discussed and you've given feedback often, and you've made
Yes.
the goals clear and the expectations clear, very crystal clear, not vague, like, hey, get it done, but
Yeah.
very clear. Those are easier conversations because the people see them coming, and they almost will come to you and be like, I'm trying, it's not working. I see this isn't a fit. That's when you've done it effectively. And you're like, hey, I'm going to help you. We're going to, I see where your strengths are. I'm sorry they don't fit here, whatever that conversation is. It makes it easier when you surprise them. When you've held off and you haven't given feedback consistently, that's when that's a 10 times more painful conversation to have, because nobody, I don't care who you are, likes to fire people. Now, sometimes we're angry enough to like blow up and fire someone, but that's also not a good image we want to put out there.
Somebody told me that if you're firing somebody and they're surprised, then you didn't do your job.
Then you weren't doing, so you failed there. And nobody should be fired and it be a surprise.
What about for a leader? And I'm an example person, so I'll use an example. I've learned over my career that I know what type of person I like to work for, right? Like I like to work for a tough but fair person who holds their people accountable, but also is also like swift and decisive. Here's what I want to do. Here's where I want to do it. What are your thoughts on it? Let's do it. But then we'll follow up with you and say, listen, we talked about this. Are we here yet? Or like I like a person who holds their people accountable, is tough but fair. Type of leader. That's just the kind of person that I work well for and have thrived under. But each employee, some people don't like to work for that type of person. So does a leader have to recognize not everybody? You can't treat everybody the same, right? Or, I'm not sure.
Right. Well, and I think, one things we work with our leaders on is understanding people's different communication styles and how they are different, and really, how to connect in a way that person feels comfortable and feels inspired to be their best selves. Now, that being said, and although you are super unique, most people need accountability. We think that they don't want that, and we feel like they won't like us if we hold them accountable. But people, it's like children, how they say children think they want to run rampant, but then as teenagers are like, why doesn't anybody care about me? Why don't they care enough to help? Why? And so when employees do not feel held accountable, they feel like you don't care. There's what I call care and candor. And it's, I care for you, so I want to be honest with you and help you be the best you can be. Now, there's some people who just do candor, like get it together, you're a loser. So it's partnering and balancing that. Because if you just care for someone and you don't ever kind of hold them accountable, then that's pretty dysfunctional. We're just all wanting to be liked. But if you really do care about people, you want to kind of pull them back and say, hey, Matt, I see more in you. Or I really kind of feel like, this is something that you should challenge yourself and push yourself on. And so it's really our role as leaders is to bring the very best out of people so that they are fulfilled. And a lot of people need that nudge. But you're right. How you do it and how often you do it kind of depends on the personality of the teammate, in terms of how you come across. But and there's situations, and we have a lot of less and less nowadays, but a lot of family owned businesses are common in our industry. In radio, it became, that was the case in radio up until like the mid 90s. Oh, really?
When there's the radio consolidation, and we worked for a family company, and we got bought by a company that got bought by a company. And before you know it, you work for a publicly traded company that doesn't care about its employees, right?
There's none of that happening in automotive.
Right.
Like every time I turn around, I'm like, who got bought? Yeah.
Who bought who? I had the good fortune of working for a family in automotive in the beginning of my automotive career. The dad owned the store, the son was the operations general manager, the daughter was the BDC manager, and you worked for a family. And what I liked about that was what was important to them was family. They had kids and the kids' kids, and my boss's wife would always stop by with the kids, so family was important to them. And if I said, hey, listen, I got a t-ball game to coach tomorrow at 5:15, I'm going to cut out a little early. Yeah, man, absolutely. Do it. Take care of what you got to take care of. Right.
Yeah,
because
great.
that for an employee, it gives you the warm and fuzzies.
And you're at the root of it is, I mean, the biggest need we have is to be heard and to be cared for and to be valued. And so, doing that within your organization is what really ties people to you with loyalty. And it's also what makes people kind of jump on board when you say, hey, we're going to try something new, because they have your best interest, and that they care for you, and that you can count on them. And then that does make change a much easier road to have when you trust your leader like you did there.
But the other side of that too is retail is an interesting animal in some situations. I was the marketing guy. So, me being there and not being there didn't have an effect on what was happening on the floor at the moment. But what about, automotive is famous for, hey, I got to work bell to bell on Tuesdays and I get Wednesdays off and I work every third Sunday. So isn't that, easier said than done in some situations, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely size of store will impact that. But in reality, we have a performance management issue more than we have a how much time can you spend at the store issue. If you're doing and working and living up to performance goals and expectations, you're going to get your numbers, right?
Yeah.
We tend to let everybody, because our managers aren't really comfortable with conflict and having those conversations and giving feedback and coaching. So it's kind of a free for all sometimes in terms of, till the end of the month, where it's like, get here all done, but if you're just working bell to bell, you're not using skill sets. You're just waiting for an easy up.
Yeah.
If you work on your team at scheduling and reaching out and building lifetime customers and putting value in the customers, if you're working on those areas, you can live a life and work a schedule. Now, maybe that we just have to stop the model. Every other retail place isn't open, when it's let's figure out how we can help people have a life, how it can blend, how we can respect it probably is more than the hours. Do you respect that I want to go see my kid's baseball game? And I'm not going to do it every week or, every day, but it's important to me to be there this amount of time. So.
And that builds loyalty. Like if my employer, respects me and understands that I need to go, coach T-ball or, something like that occasionally, that builds like, okay, well, I want to do well for this person because they're doing well for me. That builds loyalty when you have culture like that.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And, we've got to get more creative about our scheduling. We've got to get creative that maybe we have the opportunity to have a really flexible schedule. If we really map out when the traffic flow comes and let people go in the middle of the day, maybe they have lunch with their kids, or maybe they go do their grocery shop. I mean, maybe they do things that support their family. We just have to get more creative about not controlling their time and letting it kind of ebb and flow as we need it. But not just, people don't like standing around doing nothing, just so that you feel comfortable that we've staffed the floor in case of an emergency.
Yeah, right. Exactly. In case there's a run on Muranos at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Exactly. Right.
We would sit in our office and be like, oh, well, yeah, that won't be busy on that day. So we'll do this. And it's like, well, why is that a time when we need 8 people here?
Yes. And it's easier on the leaders. It's easier on the managers to just put you all in, but it's time for us to step up as leaders and get more creative and put some of that effort on our own to really look at scheduling in an effective way. And, and that's why we're seeing the model change and more stores trying to build teams that can, partner with each other. And that may change how we compensate people. But that means we have to change how we compensate the leaders. I mean, there's a lot going on right now that progressive dealers are trying and finding a lot of success with. But it takes a pretty big dive in. To want to modernize your store in order to meet today's workforce needs. But I'm afraid if we don't, we're going to have anybody working for us, and everybody's going to have to work bell to bell all the time because there's not enough people that want to come work in automotive.
There's a family-owned 10-store group in Connecticut, and I was on their Facebook page during, I don't remember what the holiday was, but their thing was, our stores are closed this Labor Day weekend or Labor Day so that our employees can enjoy, important time, with their families. We will be available to you and reopen on this day. In the meantime, you can look here and fill out a form here and yada, yada, yada. But I love that. I love positioning it like that. Like, come on, we give our guys the day off, Yeah.
Well, and I always say, your culture is your brand and your why buy here is your why work here. So it has to be authentic. I think we used to be able to like fib about that a little bit, but now with everybody having access to social media, people want to buy from people they're comfortable with and cultures they're comfortable with. So if you have people who love what they do and you love them, and that's going to be really reflective in your community and your markets. And people are just they're like, hey, you can't be open on Labor Day. Fine. I'll be there Monday because you're the kind of place I want to work with. I think we have a desperation, like, oh, if I'm not there, then I'm not going to get the last dregs of the customers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's not going to, and, I always remember, salespeople being like, oh, I haven't been to a family Memorial Day picnic in 20 years, and it's like, so we ended up implementing a thing where like you would either get Memorial Day off or Labor Day off. So it would be like, all right, this half of the people work this day, this half this day. So you're not all working, doing things like that goes along. You're fun to talk to, Fleming. I want to do another episode with you soon.
I would love to, Matt. I feel like we could pick many, many topics of the dysfunctions.
What are you working on? What are you working on for Dealer Marketing Magazine right now?
Right now, I'm working on how you modernize the sales process. And by that, I mean moving from a transactional sale to the relationship sell. And kind of coming back to what you were just talking about, when you start to build a book of business, like other sales people, and you start to build like, hey, call me, and they do, that's all about relationships. And we tend to kind of just go fast, close, beat them up, get gross. And that doesn't give us that repeat business. So really giving salespeople, service advisors, the skills to deal with a very complicated customer, I would say now, where you can't just script it out anymore, is, to me, where the next big opportunity is. And so we'll be sharing some of those secrets of getting that started in the next article.
How often on LinkedIn are you confused for an actual dealership?
It's not so bad on LinkedIn, but what's funny is that's how I got into automotive, because when I first got in, they all would put me through to the GM thinking I was doing a dealer trade. And so
Fleming Ford, right.
So I got through the gatekeepers pretty easily. And then I would be like, hey, do you have a retention problem? Do your people work hard? And so I ended up running the automotive arm just because I ended up with so many automotive dealers as clients back in the day.
So what you're saying is I should change my name to Wilson Jeep, and every Jeep store will take my call.
Give it a try. Yeah.
What a great idea. Fleming Ford, president of ESI Leadership Academy and expert panel member at Dealer Marketing Magazine. This was fun, Fleming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Next time.
I kicked you off too quick. Finish your sentence.
No, I said until next time.
Yes, until next time. This is season 6, by the way. We're recording this before season 5 is over, but this is an episode in season 6. Happy to be continuing Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Lots of great episodes are available everywhere that you can find podcasts. And I'm supposed to say, stay in touch. People always tell me, Matt, you don't ask for likes and follows enough. And that's just not my style. But, like and follow and whatever you're supposed to say when you host a podcast. All right. Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson, presented by Silverback Advertising, online at silverbackadvertising.com.
Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson is brought to you by... Wait, this guy has sponsors? Oh, never mind. This sheet of paper's blank. No sponsors. That makes more sense. For updates, info, future episodes, and more, follow on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, and connect on Frackle. You guys made that last one up. That's not even a thing, Frackle. Come on.